Welcome friends to another r/ProRevenge video. Today we've got a story that involves millions. But first, a story from Miss Rarity. Ignore my no soliciting sign? That'll be $1,500. I've posted elsewhere on Reddit about my trouble with storm chasers. Yes, I'm an idiot, but that's not the point here. TLDR, these pushy roofing scammers talked me into filing a claim for a new roof with my insurance, which my insurance denied, and now insurance is telling me to pay for a new roof on my own dime or they're dropping me. After my last encounter with these door-to-door sales pests, I put up a sign that says, "No soliciting, don't knock, don't ring the bell, don't make it weird." Redditors warned me that the storm chasers wouldn't listen. They were correct. In late May, one of them ignored my sign and rang my bell. He gave me a flyer with his name and his company's name on it. I found out that my city requires solicitors to apply for a soliciting permit, and when they apply for this permit, they agree to not solicit to homes with no soliciting signs. So either he didn't have a permit or he was in violation of it. I Karened up and reported them to the city. They didn't have a permit. The city just emailed me back today. The companies agreed to pay a $1,500 fine. Now I kind of hope these scammers keep ignoring my sign. I can't wait to have more of them hit with the $1,500 fines. This is actually amazing, and I wish more places had these kinds of rules that were more known about. I've had family members who fell for the same kind of scam. A no-name roofing company shows up one day knocking on your door saying, "Hey, we're replacing your neighbor's roof over on the other block, and we noticed yours looks like it could be in need of repair or replacement. We think you got a pretty good shot with your insurance to get a replacement or something like that." And then they whip out a form, they try to get you to sign it, and they say, "You'll pay no cent. We'll only do it if your insurance agrees to the full replacement." It worked out and they actually did get their roof replaced for, I think they still had to pay something, but it wasn't like, it was a negligible amount, like a couple $100s or something. But basically, if somebody shows up and tries to get you to sign a form on the cold call, would you guys agree with me that no matter how good it seems, the advice should be always say no if they try to ask you to sign anything on the first go around? Let me know in the comments down below. Our next story is from Lady Lucky 26. Attempted hack failed. Today, I received a notification that a new address had been added to my Instacart account. Being that I knew I hadn't used Instacart recently, I grew a bit concerned. When I logged on, I noticed that an order was being placed for a laptop from Best Buy. Yeah, that's not gonna happen. I quickly changed the password and email because it's better safe than sorry, which of course logged this butthead out of my account. I guess it didn't give them much time to delete the address I now had. Here's where I had a bit of revenge. I called the police who took down the address, and I was told they would be contacting the police in Fresno, as well as giving your information to the IC3.gov, for internet crimes. I contacted Instacart because, well, it happened on their platform and I want to make them aware. Then I contacted Best Buy, giving them the address and letting them know about the fraud. They have your address on file and know who you are now, which now has that address blacklisted from all Best Buys, period. I hope you step on an extremely well-hidden Lego, you pathetic toe cabbage. How much are you willing to bet that this is some kind of awful drop spot? I imagine if you go to that address, it's going to be maybe an Airbnb or just a straight up abandoned house or maybe like a corner lot. Someplace where they see the delivery coming up and they just stroll down the street and be like, "Oh, sorry, I was just out for a walk. Is that my Instacart delivery?" Our next story is from Raker CL. A horrible former boss applied for a position on the company I was working. I worked on a big IT company about 11 years ago in a Spanish-speaking country. That's why my story writing might be a little confusing. One of my best achievements on that position was to have the whole team back to the office, and with a better attitude, as the evaluation, themselves, and the area manager mentioned. The former boss was promoted to another position, still related to this group but with a slightly different scope. He was that kind of person that wanted to get well with everyone just to be shown as the salvation of the world, but not really checking commits and how things were done, even without really concerning whose toe he was stepping on. As an example, on the same day, at the same time, he booked for the same technical requirement on 2 different and distant places, and when I got the second request, a couple of hours later that same day, I asked how I was going to do it, that he has to confirm with me as I was supposed to coordinate these tasks. He said something like, "It's your job to do what I ask you to do." I lasted less than a year over there. About 6 years later, I was on a management position at a different company, and there was a vacancy for some technical team leadership. I didn't know he was applying until I got invited to interview the final 3 candidates. He was one on the list. I found it when I got the resume of the 3 candidates and had a devilish internal pleasuring satisfaction for this opportunity. He was the second on the shift, and I was with the general manager of the company speaking with the candidates. I took his printed resume and wrote down the following comment for the GM. I worked with this guy. I would not recommend him at all. He got the paper and looked at me with big eyes without saying a word. I start the interview as soon as he entered, recognizing me and smiling like we were friends for many years. I greet him and invite him to sit, explain to him what the position was requiring, and as one of the requirements, he would need to speak English, as our counterpart is located in another non-Spanish speaking country. So I ask him in English, checking his resume. For the GM here with us, it shows here you work on that other company 6 years ago. What were your achievements there, and why did you leave that position? He starts babbling and speaking with horrible pace about what he did, literally without proper pronunciation and hard to understand. That he was in charge of a whole area, he made the team grow stronger, and he was responsible for the success of the company. Things I knew never happened. I told him that I kept in touch with many team members, including his peers, and I was aware of some slightly different situations. I asked him in Spanish about some management, soft skills questions, and he answered awkwardly, showing he didn't fit the position at all. Right before the last question, and my smiling, he should have noticed that he wouldn't be chosen. My boss wrote down on the resume minus, which means not for this or any other position. Me, I just said, "It was a pleasure to meet you," which it really was. I think there's probably nothing more satisfying than being able to be on the other side of the table when somebody in the past was in some kind of boss-like position and was being awful. I think it's kind of akin to those stories of kings and princes where somebody's this awful and almighty ruler, then they fall on hard times, they lose their position, they lose their crown, and one of the people they bullied around was the one that took that mantle. Those kinds of people, they hope for mercy, but we all know they don't deserve it. Our next story is from nondescript user. Don't post pictures of my baby. Another post on here reminded me of this story from when I had my first kid. My mom and I have had a strained relationship for a long time. Probably more bad memories than good ones at this point, but back when the story takes place, I was still making an effort to keep her in my life. I live on one coast and she lives on the other. See the paragraph above for why. So when my first kid was born, she was salty that my mother-in-law got to be there and she didn't. My mom had been there for my brother and sister's kids because they're closer in proximity and relationship, so she felt the same entitlement. So anytime my wife and I, texted her a picture, it went straight on Facebook, so she could show off her 7th grandchild. This really annoyed my wife and I because we didn't want our new baby plastered all over the internet. So early on, I told my mom, "We're not going to send you pictures if you can't keep them off social media." And wouldn't you know it, the next pics we sent went right on her Facebook page. I could have called it quits, but I still felt guilty that I wasn't sharing photos since we were so far away from my mom. I'd always had a good relationship with my grandparents, and I wanted that for my kids. So the next special event rolled around, and I sent my mom pictures but used a watermark app so she wouldn't post them. Didn't stop her. So at this point I was done. Guilt or no guilt, I wasn't going to risk her doing it again. But I had some petty revenge in my mind that would cancel out some of the joy she got from posting pics without permission. My daughter had a very expressive face as a baby, so one picture of her may not look anything like the next. So I searched some mommy blogs and found a similar looking baby to our daughter and sent them to my mom. I didn't say, "Here's baby's name." I said, "Here's some baby pics," which was not a lie, just not my baby. Anyways, we didn't have to wait long before she'd posted them to Facebook, and not long after that did all of her friends start writing comments about the pics. I waited until there was a healthy smattering of oohs and ahs before I commented, "Why did you post pics of some random baby?" She for some reason engaged with me in the comments as I called her out in front of the people she was trying to impress before taking the post down. I didn't send her pics again. I think it was pretty nice to expose and hopefully embarrass them. Maybe in the future, in other people's situations, they might, reconsider. But honestly, I think OP was just a bit too lenient on this. I know they wanted a good relationship between the baby and the grandparents, but if somebody's not respecting you or your wishes, I think you have to do maybe a 3 strikes thing. Tell them once, don't post it. If they do it again, tell them again. The next time is going to be the last time, don't do it again. And you cut them off. Our next story is from Throw Away the Hair. We broke up after you stole from me. I didn't pay your car insurance. This is an update that I'm so happy to give. My first post was about how my ex stole money, destroyed my twins' communication tablets, and was going to get away with it. I had to go to 3 different police stations to report it, and despite what 2 cops said, I wasn't going to call it even. I officially filed a report on my destroyed property. I filed in civil court and knew it was going to take a while, but I wasn't giving up. When the repo man came knocking on my door looking for my ex, I gave them the address to her new place and where her new job was because no one would rat on her. It took less than an hour for her car to get towed. Sweet petty revenge. Until today, I received a call from an officer asking me if I'd been paying my girlfriend's insurance and wanted confirmation that it was up to date. I told him I didn't have a girlfriend, but it sounded like it could be my ex. She had gotten pulled over and she couldn't provide her car insurance card, but she said her boyfriend, me, had been paying it. This witch actually thought I was still paying it. I told the cop no, she had stolen from me, and I'd cut ties with her. Long story short, she was in possession of a controlled substance, driving with no insurance, driving with a suspended license, and FTA/theft fourth. The last charge was because she was stupid enough to still have the tablets in the car despite them being busted. The serial numbers matched, and while I'm not getting them back, it's a criminal charge versus civil now. I looked up her arrest record and found out she has an alias of T-Bone. I haven't laughed so hard in a long time. Something I knew nothing about and can't help but want to thank her was for stealing from me, because I wouldn't have walked away. As pathetic as that is, I met her right after my daughter died and I ignored the red flags. She was excellent at hiding things because I never saw her take a drug once. Little did I know I was living with T-Bone the thug. This is honestly great stuff to hear. Basically, OP has twins who have disabilities, and they used their communication tablets pretty heavily while this ex went and broke them. So for them to get busted here, that's pretty good revenge as it is, but for them to have the busted tablets in the back and make that civil case now criminal case a slam dunk, well that's just frosting, icing, cherry all over the top. This next story is from StephFace7. You've been served. Years ago, I used to work in a 3-story pub, an old creaky wooden beams sort of place, where the seating areas and bars are in different rooms to each other. There was a handbell on the bar for customers to ring if there was no one behind the bar. Being over 3 floors and usually only 2 staff members working, it was bound to happen. But everyone was super chill about waiting. They understood bartending wasn't our only job, and we'd be back as soon as we could. Except this one older guy. He would always sit opposite the door in the seating area, so if I left the bar, he'd see. It wouldn't matter how much of his pint he had left. As soon as I went to do another job, within 10 seconds he'd be at the bar, empty glass, ring the bell, then stare at me with a condescending smile. He said a few times, "You have to stop what you're doing and serve a customer as soon as they're at the bar. That's your job." He was in most days and he was really starting to get on my nerves. There was a policy in the pub of the customer is not always right. And even swearing at them was okay as long as they'd done something to deserve it, which I did once, but I didn't want to give this guy the satisfaction of getting under my skin. So one day, he ordered his pint, I moved the bell onto a visible but unreachable shelf behind the bar, and went to wash glasses, a position in which I can see the bar. As per usual, he shot up from his seat, went to the bar, and instinctively reached out for the bell, but oop, it's not there. He frantically looked for it, even leaning over the bar to see if it was there. I really fought to keep myself composed. He spun around, glaring at me, and I smiled and continued cleaning glasses as slowly as I could, maintaining as much eye contact as I could as his face went redder and redder with rage. I finally went over to the bar to serve him and said, Now, how can I help you? I put the bell back on the bar, but he never rang it again. Like, it's one thing if this dude is just like rampaging through their drinks and go ding 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 every single time, but this is one of those dudes that just for some reason wants to watch the world burn. If OP leaves, they just chug whatever they have down so they can be a jerk? Is that what drunks do these days? This next story is from Lauren, deliberately telling my future mother-in-law the wrong name for my baby. I, 23-year-old female, and my fiance, 25-year-old male, are expecting a baby girl next month. We're really excited as this is our first child, and we've been trying to prepare for parenthood. A lot of our family's been helping us with baby stuff and giving us general advice. They're also really super excited for her, especially my future mother-in-law. She's a very stubborn person and hasn't really accepted me as part of the family yet. She always tells my fiance how he could do so much better than me and that he's fallen into the trap of having my child. It's hurt me a lot. And my fiance has had a talk to her about it, but she still hasn't apologized or anything, so I just tend to ignore it now. She's also one of them mums who post every little detail of their life to Facebook, like when my fiance proposed, she went straight to Facebook before we could announce it ourselves. Recently, me and my fiance have been coming up with names for our little girl, and we've both decided on the perfect name. A few days ago on a phone call, my fiance accidentally slips up by telling my future mother-in-law that we've chosen a name. She's been non-stop messaging us and calling us to find out the name. We don't want to tell her until the baby is born, so it doesn't ruin the surprise, and the whole of Facebook finds out before we're comfortable telling everyone. She tried guilt-tripping my fiance by telling him how he's hurting her by not telling his own mother the name of her grandchild, that he doesn't love her, and that we, especially me, are gonna try and keep her from seeing the baby. I'm not sure why she would think that, as nothing we've said has suggested it. To stop her from getting on my fiance's back, I wrote a message saying that if she wants to know, she can't post it on Facebook. She agreed, and I told her a fake name. 5 minutes later into checking Facebook, I can't believe I'm going to be a granny to baby Charlotte next month. So proud of fiance's name and his partner. My fiance was furious and called her and told her that she was wrong to announce it. She said that she was so overjoyed by it that she couldn't resist. He told her how that wasn't even the name and that we aren't gonna tell her until she's born, and hung up. It's been a few days and my fiance's been getting texts from her saying that she didn't mean to and that I'm the jerk for telling her the wrong name. Her words were, "Who even tells their future mother-in-law the wrong name of their grandchild?" Honestly, I can't even imagine dealing with people like this. It honestly sounds pretty awful. I mean, it's like operating a company or a sports franchise, and you have your inner dealings and you have that one person that goes rogue because they find out the information and they blab it out wherever they can and it's trending on Twitter the next day. You literally cannot tell this person anything without them just going and self-reporting it. Might as well go over to the future mother-in-law's house and set up a news studio in their office, get them that little handheld microphone, get them the webcam set up so they can look in, hold that mic up and say, "Welcome to the news. I'm so proud of baby Charlotte." That's right, they're naming their kid Charlotte. You've heard it here first. Yes, that's right. Did I mention I'm the future mother-in-law? This next story is from National Cockroach 69. Paying on the door cost extra. This happened about 9 years ago, but I saw the guy yesterday, so it's been brought to the forefront of my mind. I used to work in a pub, which like any watering hole had a fair number of regulars. One group consisted of about 6 middle-aged men who like to think they own the place because they each bought 2 pints of Carling every day. Their ringleader was Martin, the most booming of boomers. We got a new manager who decided that we were going to throw a Christmas party and charge people 10 British pounds for tickets to cover food and a DJ. I was put in charge of planning the event. Tickets were limited to 150, so I made sure to ask all the regulars if they wanted one before I offered them out to the general public. Pretty much all of them bought one and were genuinely excited about it, as we hadn't done something like this for years. When I asked Martin and his pals, however, it was a different story. Martin was offended that I had the gall to expect him to pay 10 whole pounds to come to a pub he's been drinking in for 25 years, and argued that regulars should get in free. His cronies mumbled in agreement. I couldn't be bothered to argue with them, so I just reiterated that the tickets were a tenner and got on with my work. After that, Martin would loudly grumble about us not caring about the people who keep this place in business whenever he was in. Over the next couple of weeks though, all of the men bar Martin ended up buying a ticket. I think that because they always stood at the bar, they could see how many tickets we were selling and overheard how excited everyone was and got a bad fear of missing out. They were obviously too scared to tell Martin for a while though, because it wasn't until tickets had been sold out for a few days that he sheepishly asked to buy one. The look on his face when I told him we'd sold out was priceless. He semi-demanded that I put his name on the list anyway, because he was now willing to pay, and it was just one more person. I told him no. He told me to stop being buddy, so I say if he insults me again, he's not getting served. He went to my manager, who backed me up. She was a jerk, but she hated Martin as well, and eventually slinked off back to his little gang looking surliest freak. In the run-up to the party, his friends all asked us to sell him a ticket, but to no avail. The night of the party arrives and everything is going swimmingly. We have 2 people on the door checking tickets. About half an hour in, one of them comes and tells me that Martin is here, begging to be let in. He's almost crying, apparently because all his mates are here. I ask my manager what she thinks. She says it's up to me since it's my event. Now, I hated the guy, but he was obviously a very lonely individual, and I wasn't gonna be a total jerk at Christmas time. So I go to the door and tell Martin that he can come in, but it will cost extra since he didn't book in advance. £30 rather than 10, and that before he tries to argue, he should know my manager will tell him the same thing. He looks like he wants to punch me, but manages to compose himself and hands me the money, which I decide to put in the tip jar. The rest of the night was great and is one of my fondest memories of that pub. After that, Martin was still an arrogant, stupid oaf, but he knew better than to try and argue with me. I'm just wondering how many people out there would actually pocket the difference. I mean, considering OP had to put up with Martin all these different times, I feel like they earned that Martin tax. Our next story is from MTGX Buster. Girl didn't say thank you for the $5 I sent her, spent it before she could. So yeah, I was talking to a girl I met on Tinder. Pretty bland conversation for the most part. She mentions that she had a rough week and hadn't eaten in 4 days. I just so happen to have a $5 Visa virtual card from a passive income app I use for random Wish purchases. I sent her it, and she complained that it wasn't on Cash App or PayPal. I just told her to take it or leave it. She screenshotted it and just said, okay. Not even a thank you for helping me or anything. So I just said to myself, no thank you? Screw that noise, and hauled butt to Wish. I clicked on the first thing that was $5 with the price and shipping, $5 exactly. So now she's out $5 and I'm getting a bong attachment for any water bottle sometime next month. A small win for an ungrateful person. In hindsight, she was probably lying to me. I'm willing to bet this was some thin-haired, big, mustard-stained shirt-wearing Tinder girl that was going through a really rough time. For guys looking around on Tinder, there's a lot of bots or scammers that pop up on there. And honestly, I think OP should just be lucky that they didn't get fooled into giving up more on a different platform. This next story is from Frank1, stopped my bully from standing his ground, literally. Back in middle school, I was getting bullied by one of the guys in my friend group. He made my life pretty miserable in 6th and 7th grade. He'd make fun of me for being short, being unathletic, being a nerd, whatever stupid BS kids get bullied for in middle school. He would put girls' underwear in my jacket pocket without me knowing once, and then a few classes later, he pulled the underwear out of my pocket and told everyone that I wore a thong. Looking back on it, it was actually kind of funny, but it was pretty humiliating at the time, as I had really low self-esteem already. I went to a guidance counselor to get him to stop, and she was actually really helpful, and got him to leave me alone in school, but weekends and summers, he'd go right back to being a jerk. Cue the revenge. It was the summer after 7th grade, and we were at a different friend's house playing wiffle ball, and the kid was chirping me the whole game. Every time I'd get up to bat, he'd tell everyone to move in, and since he was pitching, he'd throw it harder at me and make fun of me for not being able to hit the ball. At some point, I ended up getting on third base, and the guy who was batting hit the ball, and I was running towards home when he ran to the plate. He kept calling out, "OP's coming home, it's an easy out, throw it to me," and crap like that. And I decided I finally had enough. I could have easily have made it home and slid into the plate because the ball wasn't gonna make it there in time, but I chose violence. Now, he wasn't wrong. I was a short kid and I was pretty unathletic. I'd played football, but I was the very definition of a bench warmer, being 4'11" and scrawny when everyone else had already reached 5'5". But I was so angry that I didn't care. I ran towards him, dropped my shoulder, and dove straight into the kid's stomach. He fell on the floor and couldn't breathe, and I ended up scoring. My teammates were laughing hysterically and the kid just looked so embarrassed. He never bothered me again after that. I don't really know if that's petty, but I saw a picture of us last night that brought the memory back and wanted to share it somewhere. Frankly, I think OP was just kind of talking the bully's language. Sometimes these bullies, I think they need a little physicality back from you, and sometimes that's all it takes for them to respect you or finally realize you're not to mess with. If you're willing to blow up or get a little physical, sometimes these people are like, you know what, okay, maybe I shouldn't mess with that person, they're kind of crazy. And our final story of the day is from Double J369. I would like a raise and time off, and I want to start this off by clarifying that it's not my story, it's the story of someone very close to me, and I'll leave out a large amount of specific detail because quite a bit of info is not mine to reveal. The build-up to the revenge is that this person had a horrible employer. She worked HR and managed payroll at what was effectively a nursing home. I don't know that they call themselves that, but it's what they are. The company had a bit of a good old boys club going on, with all the highest level management being older men who all did less work and got more pay than pretty much everyone else. There were regular complaints from women about being mistreated, and many women were fired for absolutely absurd reasons, followed by their male coworkers getting raises. That in and of itself was bad, but it wasn't what instigated the need for revenge. What caused the burning desire to get back at the company was when the company fired my friend's manager, who was a woman, because she took a week off after literally breaking a leg badly. The HR department was already badly understaffed, so my friend had to take on the responsibilities of this manager without any pay bonus. She requested a pay bonus multiple times, denied each time. A month or so later, the company hires a new manager to replace the old one at nearly twice the salary. This new manager is an older man. I'm not entirely sure what this guy actually did during the day, because my friend continued to do all of the managerial tasks. And she knows that for a fact because the guy's account didn't have access to the systems he needed access to, and he never asked for that access. For 6 months, my friend showed this manager issues with their system, including payroll, and explained that she was not only the only employee who knew how to use the payroll system, but she was the only one with access to it. The sexist jerk ignored her and made regular comments about how she was replaceable and useless. One day, she loses her crap. She set up a bot with her credentials to automatically assign her pay each pay period according to her actual salary, so not stealing or anything. She then carefully plans her next move and puts in her 2-week notice, right before a large department-wide week off, and right before her only coworker has a 2-week vacation. She wouldn't have time to train the coworker, even if the coworker was in the country. The manager still dismissed her, thinking he could just hire someone who knew what they were doing. Little did he know, she tweaked with the payroll software over her time there. Nothing super awful, but it was very different from what the base software was. She was the only person who knew how to properly use it, and the only person in the whole company, including the CEO, who had access to the necessary numbers to actually run the payroll. When she leaves after the 2 weeks, the company has 2 whole pay periods where they do not pay their employees. They can't. But my friend still gets paid because they never disabled her automatic payment thing. They couldn't. Eventually they called her and basically begged her to consult with them on their payroll. For the past 6 months, she's been paid $250 an hour for 5 hours a week to run the company's payroll. Fully remote, even though it was an in-person job before. And to top it all off, she doesn't even actually work the 5 hours. She wrote a script on her personal devices to process payroll for her. She just asked to press one button. She's working another job now, but darn, she really kicked them in the butt for their crap. I really don't understand companies who go and do this. Now, I understand the beginnings of this where they try to push off way too many responsibilities on people who get paid pretty much the bare minimum and don't have the title for it. But to allow somebody to become the sole point of knowledge and access to getting any of this stuff done and then still fire them, like just how out of touch were they? It seems like they had this great plan that was being pulled behind the scenes, but then they go and yank the carpet right out from under themselves. But with that being said, that's all the time we have for today. Now, if you want to hear another revenge story that was way crazier than any of the ones in this video, click on that left video. Or, if you missed my latest video, check out the one on the right. That said, I'll see you all next time with some more stories.